of allegiance. Call this special meeting to order. It is Monday, November 9th. Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll do roll call first. Gordon.
Okay. Mayor Laughlin.
Here.
Councilperson Miller.
Here.
Schoolman absent. Goodweiler.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Sexton.
Here. Jody's on her way. Okay. I didn't have the agenda in front of me, so I didn't bring my tablet. So,
Oh, you want an agenda? There's some over there on the table.
oh, there are. Tell me you're getting for me, Jerry.
It's super basic anyway.
I know. I think we'll start with Kevin, probably.
Yeah. But I did want to let everyone, Dave, Melissa, Matt. I forgot Nick. I did just email you an updated version of the draft capital improvement plan. So if you have the ability to access your email, you'll be able to see what everybody else is going to be looking at.
So the purpose of this meeting is to discuss capital improvement projects and hopefully come up with a short list of some sort of hierarchy of capital improvements and how to fund them. That's what I'm looking to come out with a little bit tonight. We don't have to make really super hard decisions, but I just want to get started on it. I guess we'll start with, I guess I got to have public comment. If anyone is here to speak to the council publicly, we'll hear you. Hearing none, we're gonna, oh, wait a minute. We're gonna start with Kevin Olson. He's gonna give us a primer on TIF.
I'm just going to add on to what Maggie said last week, and then what I've done here is I've just given you a handout to show, basically this is excerpts of the urban renewal plan, just to remind everybody how this all works. So when you're working through your capital improvement plan.
Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. When you're working through a capital improvement plan. So you can make sure, first thing you do is the project you want to fund with TIF has to be in here. So if you look on these pages, there are, if you go through there are 18 projects listed between the numerous parts of the plan here, all the way down from, so these, starting with Procter & Gamble, Casey's, we've done that. Parkside Drive road improvements, that was a thing we did with the, when we did, that was already been done already. That was when the park did their thing up there. You got Peterson Valley Rec, that's how we're paying for part of the park project. The second page, 8 through 14, a lot of these are things that, number 11, accidental legal fees. As you saw, we are in the middle of paying those right now. We do have Johnson Cedar Road on there for $2.5 million. That may be light, but we did this. This one was done back in 14 or 15. So downtown East redevelopment. That's what we used to buy the Kroll site, 4th Street. We did that project. So a lot of these projects have been done already. If you go 2 more pages down, there's if you go on the bottom, there's a sheet that shows projects 15 and 16 on the bottom. But above that, there's a bunch of right-of-ways. Those right-of-ways are all in the, I'll wait for you guys to do that one right there. 1 through 14, these are old right-of-ways right-of-way in the old part of town. Some of them, that we just added into the plan so that in case we wanted to do any projects out there. And if you look at project 16, we do have up to $1 million of TIF money we could spend on water main upgrades and any right-of-way in this. I will get you, I'll make sure we email a map around, because they're a lot like Main Street and everything that's already been in That's already in the TIF plan and stuff already. These were just added. These ones 1 through 14 were just added, and it matched up with some needed water main improvements on those streets.
That's
That's
what we did just a couple of years ago.
a couple of years ago. Yep. So then the next page, you have number 17, which is the Meadows Development Agreement. And the next page after that is the Little Lights Agreement. So if you're, so this brings us to, that's just a quick overview. So two things that you have to have: the area, the actual property has to be in the urban renewal plan. And then you have to name the project as eligible to be funded for TIF. Now, my guess is when you look at capital improvement plan, most of the right-of-ways or everything are probably in the plan already. So what you do, we do have water mains that we could do $1 million, but if you're doing other upgrades, we'd just have to name the plan on here with a maximum amount there. So one thing I was going to point out then, so when you're looking at your capital improvement plan, if you go to that first page, it says TIF debt report that Maggie went through last week. So if you look under number 2, that second column says FY 2021, it said TIF captured value. So in FY 19 and 20, the captured value was $56,560,000. And the captured value this year is $62,563,000. So we gained $6 million of incremental value in our TIF area. So if we were to collect that entire amount of the $6 million, I'm just showing, that would generate approximately $160,000 in TIF value. If we're not to take that value, you would get, using your city tax rate, you'd get $73,705 out of that. So by doing it this way and capturing the value that's above the year before, in theory, that money was never in your general fund. It's not like you're going back to take it away from your general fund. What you're doing is you're collecting, you're going to ask for the amount of TIF that was gained in the last year. So you're collecting that entire amount of money instead of, then you don't have to worry about the 33%. You should always be asking for the additional money that was coming in.
From what base year? From the previous year?
So right now this year we have 62 million of incremental value. So next year she had 64 million. That was a guess. Well, you don't want to let that, whatever that $2 million, whatever value is next year, take the amount. So if we were actually going to ask for the money this year, you would ask for an additional $160,058. You could, so basically when if you're looking for a project that's either on here or you're going to look at the capital improvement plan, instead of getting $73,000 if you just let it go into the general fund, you're getting $160,058. And that $73,000 has never been in the general fund to begin with. So you would be, my recommendation would be that you collect that additional TIF income every year as you go, which means you're not taking any more than the school, the county, and everybody already had or was getting. What you're doing is you're taking the additional amounts of money that are being generated here. So which is over twice the amount of the dollars that you would have if you had just let it go in the general fund. Now, as Maggie said, we don't have any projects to put on for next year, so the $6 million is the $73,000 will just go in the general fund at this point.
Karen, I got a question.
Sure.
So then basically what you're saying is we're just gonna we'll see the growth from this year, next year in our general fund, but we won't see it this year. So we're just kind of pushing that growth back. Or does that continue to go into the TIF fund? Because we TIF things for several years out.
So anything south of the interstate was a pre-95 TIF. That TIF never ends. Like Little Lights ends in 20 years because the law changed.
Right.
But so I'm not, what I'm saying, like all the houses and stuff that are being built in Crossing High School and all those things, I'm not even saying you don't need to put those in the TIF, which would mean you'd be collecting that money. You let that go into the general fund and you just capture that growth for your general fund because you have plenty of money in here you can offset. So instead of putting the houses in the TIF area, you just let the houses go in the general fund like they have been doing. except we have to do it for the Meadows to pay the rebate agreement. That's a separate one. But like, just say Jerry's subdivision, except for Little Lights, we let all those houses go into the general fund. And whatever value, you could look at it this way, whatever value those houses, you know, are generating, you could, that's your growth in the general fund. So you don't need to, you can take the money that's created in the TIF and not let it go back to the county. So what you're going to do is, you can see from Maggie's charts down here, the farther you go out, the more money you just keep, for lack of a better term, leaving on the table and letting it go back into the, you know, you're not taking advantage of the growth and everything that you have. So like one more example would be, so we're obviously next meeting, we're going to approve the agreement with the fabrication, Newport Fabrication out at the out there. That's in the TIF area. Right now it's valued at nothing. So we're going to sell the ground for $80,000, and then they're going to build a building on that. So whatever value you get out of that, you know, when it's done, $300,000-$400,000, whatever it is, don't let that go back. You just figure out that money. You should just, that money's not in your general fund already. Just take the whole 28
increase in value.
Just take the whole increase in value in the TIF and let it, and just ask for that money the next year.
Find a project to put it on.
Yeah, you can find, we got projects in here. We got,
to put that.
We
in.
don't have, you
Do
don't
we
have
have
to.
to, or
You
do we
can-
have not?
you have to, remember, you have to have a debt. But what you can do is you can have, just kind of like what we're doing now, you know, right now we're doing the interfund loan. Well, that's a debt under TIF law. So once we get, we're going to be, if I remember correctly, there's another 82,000 that's going to go off the, off after next fiscal year that we're using to pay for the, I think it's the College Street Bridge in that area. So when that 82,000 goes off, just for the next year, plan to find some projects for $82,000 and use TIF money to pay for those projects. Don't let it go back into the general fund. Let your housing growth go into the general fund to fund your general fund growth, and then you can have, you know, twice the bang for your buck to try to hit some of these projects. I mean, you can do projects that are, you know, these water main projects that may be a $40,000-$50,000 deal. You can just 1 year say, I'm going to do an interfund loan for $40,000 or $50,000, pay it off in 1 year. We do have to, as Gordon's always said, we have to finance it up front ourselves, you know. So
Water's
we get,
supposed to pay for water though, so you
Yeah.
shouldn't have to use TIF for that.
but you can if you want. I'm just
So
saying.
We do a water fund project in the east end of town,
Yeah,
fund it through, I don't know, cash reserves or
you can use your reserves on file to pay for it,
the water fund.
and you can pay yourself back with TIF. Right now, if you look in the projects, we're already paying, the water tower is being paid for out of TIF monies. This would also help you, obviously, it helps with your rate control. These little dinky projects that you can, you know, you don't need to, it can help keep your rates down or keep the rates from going
Tax
up.
rates,
No, I'm just talking about your water rates even.
water rates.
So as Colton says, I would always recommend that you should pay for your water and sewer out of your water and sewer funds. But when I got here 9 years ago, we were so far behind. It was never, ever going to catch up. You were never going to make it work unless you raise your rates astronomically to catch up. So that's why some of the stuff's not being paid for out of the revenue funds, because it really couldn't by the time they spended money for the water tower and stuff like that. I mean, obviously the sewer plant's going to be paid for by rates. That's just the way that works, because SRF will tell you what your rate has to be when the project's bid and done. So I guess, I mean,
Kevin, before you go,
Yep.
It sounds like we can also pay off future TIF debt
Yeah.
today, early.
that would be up to you guys what you want to do, because you already have the debt out there, but you got to make sure that you have the project. So you obviously have the project for the water tower, you have the project for the park, you have you don't want to pay the rebate off, we're not doing that, but you have other projects that you already have listed in here that you could take that and put money aside to pay those debts off too.
Even though we're not going to do them next year, or we might do them
You
for a
can,
couple of
so
years.
what you can collect the money, and you know, there's one call date on your bonds usually, whatever year they set it up when they sell them off. So you could collect money for 2 or 3 years to pay that to pay, you know, when it comes to call, you don't have to pay the whole thing off. You could pay a portion of it off and then refinance it. Although whether you want to refinance it at 2.2%,
So if you borrow, if you get TIF money in advance for future payoff,
Mhm.
you have to recognize that as you're asking for it, right?
yeah. So what you'd say is, you know, you'd say, I want 50,000 to go towards this bond or whatever. When you,
Which is going to happen in maybe 3 years.
yeah. So yeah, but then you put it in a fund that you can't spend it until you get to the call date.
The state says we have to do that.
Yeah.
Probably.
And then what it does is that if it's on your debt service, that goes off your debt. Since you already have it paid off, in theory, you don't have to count that towards your debt capacity. Although you guys are in pretty good shape for your debt capacity in the next couple of years. So obviously you have bigger projects you want to use. But
One of the things I was thinking about after Maggie had said something about that, and would there be any way we could double dip into the TIF ahead of time to pay off our lawsuit that already comes out of TIF? So then we would be freeing up that money that we're already using for TIF that we're giving back. That's a money that can either free up our TIF asking or all hits the general fund and a lot of our problems are solved.
That's a loan. I mean, that's a bank.
it's a bank loan. Yeah, I don't know.
But we're still paying it off
Oh, yeah.
with TIF funds.
And it lowers your debt
Yeah.
limit. I mean, so as you pay your debt off faster, then your TIF askings can go up.
And
and pay
there
for the
was,
project.
and I don't have that sheet of paper you have, but I think there was only like 2 or 3 more papers left.
Yeah, I think it was
It's not a hell of a lot.
3, I think. We were
There's a lot of projects we could do that to, not just that one.
So we got to do our TIF asking in the next meeting.
yeah. I mean, what Maggie
Why
said is
Wouldn't we think about asking for that 160,000?
well, okay,
We just don't.
but
have
you
a
got to
plan
have
for it.
you got to have a project for
We
it.
don't have a plan for
Yeah,
it.
we
right?
do.
Yeah, we have
We
that.
have all kinds of debt we can pay off with.
Now,
Okay.
I let you guys defer to them whether that's what you want to do or not. Because if you ask for the $160,000, then that's not going to go into you're going to lose 50-some thousand out of that. It would have gone into your general fund. I'm just making sure you know that. Because obviously your general fund does not get the money. The TIF gets the money, but the general fund does not. But you gotta have a debt. You gotta have a debt that you want to. But so that would be.
Well, we could come up
And-
with a
yeah,
project.
I mean, in theory-
$50,000
Yeah.
project.
In theory, you could come up with a
Greenview
project.
connection.
You could come up with a project before the next meeting that's already in here, like it's a water project or something like that. You could do an interfund loan prior to certifying your debt, and you'd have the debt on there because the water projects are already in the plan. You can't add another project. We don't have time to add another project that's not already in the plan. That's why I gave you the project list already, because you don't have time to do that. Once you have your capital improvement plan, you can better plan this out to, know what you want to ask for.
I guess I look at it as why when we have an opportunity to increase our TIF askings, why we would give it away, especially when it's all increment increases in value. That increment value every year is what we should be trying to capture in TIF. So like you're saying, it's not taken away from the school, it's not taken away from the county, because it's not money that's ever been in anybody's budget.
They may not believe that way, but they may not see it
That's
that
the
way.
way it is.
I will argue, I've argued that with certain people before, but you're right. That would not be, so whatever we're asking for 376 and their total is 2.11 million. So they're getting, that money's already going to their budget.
It's not like going down to the industrial park and taking the money that's down there that's already in everybody's budget.
Mhm.
This is money that's not in anybody's budget that we could use every year that they aren't getting anyway.
So like next year, when you made that last $82,000 payment, I would still ask for the 82,000. You just find someplace else to do it because it's not in their budget.
So like the school term lane, so we already know that
Mhm.
we promised them
Yeah.
100,000.
Yep.
But we don't really have the money in the general fund.
Correct.
to pay for it.
Yeah, I'll agree with you because I don't know the finances off the top of my head. So.
So why would you not take this extra tip this year?
Because that project is not in the plan yet.
Yeah, that's not in the plan, just before you got here. There's a list of probably 16 or 17
Well, we
projects.
could take it and pay off another project, and then next year use that same money to pay off.
So what we'd have to do is, if that's what we want to do, we will figure out what our cost would be. Is $100,000? We'll just say, Main Street turn lane in front of school, whatever, and say it's going to cost $100,000. And if we're going to pay it over 3, 4, 5 years, you could ask for $25,000 a year. You guys had talked about using some money that was already on hand, not to make it so large. But that's something you could do. But you got to have. So before we enter a 2080 agreement with the school, we got to have the plan. We got to have the project in here. It takes probably 2 to 3 meetings to get all these things updated. But we probably should do a bigger update when we get the capital improvement plan all lined up. But if you want to use TIF for the school project, I don't know when they're even planning on building.
We can't this year, then. It's
Too late
It's
already.
too late this year.
So
But
we
we got
needed
time.
to
But you-
actually sit down back
But you
Not necessarily.
can enter before you enter the 2080 agreement with the school. You can make that a project, and that you can designate $100,000 to that project, and then the next years you could ask for it
That's coming up in the next meeting.
because you're not paying. I don't know if you're even paying. You probably make one payment before in next fiscal year, but
Yeah, we are.
so. But I thought you guys had something you were going to use to pay for some of that already, anyways.
Our first payment was $50,000.
Yeah. But you could ask for the rest of it for TIF over time too.
So let me clarify this. If we were to ask for the increase for this year for paying some debt off that we already have,
Mhm.
do we have to designate that money every year for paying off that debt, or can the next year we take that money and pay for another project?
You can do it. You can ask for it for whatever. You got to have the debt, so you could. But remember, if you use it for the debt, you can't use that $160,000 for anything else. It'll just sit there in your fund because it has to be. It has to be used to sit in your fund to pay that debt off when it's callable.
Well, I like that idea
What would
because
be the
we said
advantage
borrow.
if it takes money out of the general fund?
Oh, I'm just.
I guess I would be opposed to doing, to taking money out of general fund and having it just sit in the.
So if you did not take that money this year, you're going to get $73,000 just from the commercial TIF part in your general fund from that extra $6 million. That's the 13.09 city rate on that. So doing nothing, you're going to get $73,000 in your general fund.
I'm going to leave $90,000 off.
You're going to leave $90,000 in the.
Well, I guess the part that keeps confusing me about that whole deal is that if once you ask, you just keep getting that money for the next 20 years or whatever. How does your general fund ever grow up to a point where it's going to be able to sustain itself?
That's where he's saying the housing, you take the money that the housing is, taxes are going to.
That money ain't nothing.
Yeah. So that's the trade-off. I'm not trying to. So there's the difference right there. Just 1 year you would have 160 in TIF or 73,000 in your general fund. So that's the. And you don't have to take. You could ask for $1 million 1 year and 500,000 as long as it's. You don't have to ask for the same. Once you ask for it, you don't have to. You don't have to keep, asking for it.
So for the next meeting, we have to certify.
We certify it. And I think Maggie and Gordon or Redmond have already got something laid out.
We either need to decide tonight if we want to take that 160 or not.
Well, you'd have to have a discussion
what
about
if-
what you're going to do with that.
Well, we could figure that out tonight.
I don't think we have a project for that.
I think what they're probably saying is put it in a locked box to pay off the debt. I don't know when the next call. I don't have the. She had call dates on those underlined. I don't have that. That's not attached here.
Well, we do have. The school turn lane is in. No, it's not a project.
The Main Street is is already
That's
in
not a project.
the area. It's just not a project yet. You can't.
So Hoover Highway coming into town is not a project.
Well, it's not a project yet. No. So, but you could use
it for that.
You could use it for that.
Could or can't.
You can. As long as it's in the city limits, you can designate that project and make, because Main Street's already in and Cedar Johnson Road is already physically in the urban renewal area. What you need to do is add a project with a cost on it. So you had the, what was that, $300,000 last meeting? So somehow you'd have to figure out how you're paying for that and what your debt would be for that project.
Figured out yet.
But what you do is before you have an agreement with the county, it says you're going to pay it off over 3, 4, 5 years. That can be your project. That's your debt. You owe the county $300,000 over 5 years. That's your debt.
So how can we certify that?
You can't certify at this meeting, but you're not going to build it now. So
I mean, the next meeting, we can't.
no, you can't certify that. You can't certify for that project. You can't
Okay.
certify for the school project next meeting.
So it's got to be one of these projects on the list.
If you're going to do anything,
Got it.
which, there's not a whole either.
Well, there's design work of Cedar Johnson Road. We need to start the design work on that. If we're going to get serious about that.
But then you'd have to do an
Or there's the
interfund
actual
loan for the
legal.
design project. You have to have a debt too.
You
So-
have to have a loan.
Yeah.
From the general fund to something.
To you're loaning the TIF. The general fund's loaning the money to pay for
What
the
about
project.
number 5? Review Drive.
Greenview Drive's not.
But what I did is that right of way is in there. So if you ever had a project, you don't have to add that area. Remember, there are two things. It's got to be in the area, which means physically, legally described in the map, which I'll get the map, email that to everybody. And number 2, you have to have a project and a debt. So in theory, I don't know what Greenview costs if you were ever going to, too late for Greenview if you're doing it this year anyways. But if it was $50,000, you'd loan yourself the $50,000, have an interfund loan. They ask for the $50,000 TIF and then pay yourself back. You're like a year behind, right, Gordon? To get yourself paid back. So obviously you have to watch your cash flow on that too.
I guess my opinion on this, guys, is I see that, but to rush to just pick
Yeah.
something off a list to do it so we can just do
Sounds
something.
scary, I know.
I mean, when we've just spent 2 months trying to figure out if we were gonna do turn lanes for the school because we can't afford it.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's like the woman that buys something because it's on sale. It's on sale. I'm gonna get 2 of them. Do you need them? Oh, no, but it was on sale.
I've heard that at home before. But you already know next year you've got $82,000 that's going to go off that you can collect next year for sure. So you could plan it out. Obviously, you don't know what the values are going to be.
I can find a whole bunch. You got number 2, East College Street,
So
all the way to the termination point, which is 6th Street.
but that's the right of way that's in the area. There's not the only project that would go on there right now would be water main upgrades. I'm sure you need water main upgrades on that street, but it's not for construct. If we ever wanted to do any of the construction for regular construction, we'd have to have that as a project on the street. Those are just added in to make sure they're in the area. There's a bunch of other steps hoops you have to get through to put stuff in an area. So we did a lot of these
Projects, Jody, are number 1 through
through
7
18,
and 8 through 14.
15 through 17, and 18.
Those, it would have to be one of those projects.
But if you plan next year to say, okay, I want to do, when you figure out what your capital improvement plan is, it's easy enough to I'm not advocating one way or the other on whether you should try to get something this year. I'm just telling you can't. It's not on this list. You can't do it.
Okay, maybe that's all you need to know.
Well, the actually only logo fees and administrative costs is.
Correct.
Would we save some interest money if we paid that off?
Well, I
Earlier.
suppose a little bit.
Is it worth the? Yeah, you'd have to determine whether
It would
it's worth
hurt.
it would hurt your
General
general
fund.
fund more than the interest you're saving.
I don't know how to do this without hurting the general fund.
That's the
what
whole
I'm trying to
issue.
figure out.
Well, that's why if you're going to do this, don't let it go into your general fund, so it's not money you're taking out of it.
It is money we're taking. It's 74,000 we're taking.
Well, it isn't
Money
in
we've
your
never
general
had
fund.
yet.
We don't.
Is this same thing you're saying with the schools. They never had it. So
That's our
you
increase.
But if they did.
never realized that you didn't have it.
I'm just saying that just
Yeah,
from the,
that's what
just
you're
from the
saying.
commercial next year, you're gonna have $73,705 in your general fund if you do nothing.
Which was very nice, that increase last year.
So, and that
Really
doesn't
needed
count any of
that.
the house, although your houses, you remember you're giving money back, the city portions, paying for building incentive programs, so it's not much longer.
So.
Well, not only on top of that, but then we also got the water, the sewer main or whatever that we're paying for, of money that came out of that too. So, I mean,
So instead of park or the public, anyhow, instead of them, Public Works having a $200,000, $300,000 budget with 10 projects in it in the general fund that we always keep putting off to the side, this will tie our hand if we put those projects on a TIF list. They've got to get done.
well, they don't.
Why not?
Look at some of these, look at some of these. The Slaw commercial subdivision project for $1 million. We don't have to do that. I mean, at some point you can take it off if you don't
I
need
see what
it.
you're saying. I mean, you actually have the mechanism to fund it that way too. But, I mean, some of these were just like, that was, if you ever annex that subdivision, that's not getting annexed anytime soon. It doesn't sound like it. But Cedar Johnson Road obviously is on there, and we know eventually we're gonna have to pay the piper on that one.
Tidewater Drive Road.
But I mean, a lot of these projects have been done or in process, so.
Kevin, can you tell me what the city's portion of the tax base is? Is it 13?
1309, and the TIF rate is 28.416, which is down below on Maggie's chart.
Okay, so I just did some quick math because Colton's saying it doesn't amount to crap with residential. Every house that's built in the last 2 years, I can guarantee is pushing $400,000 house.
Mhm.
If I take 20 houses, that's $8 million. You take 55% of that, which is the tax base for residential. It gets you down to $4.4 million. That's 4,400 thousands.
Yeah.
Times 13.09. Times 13 is $57,000. City money
That's what we receive off 20 houses.
off of 20 houses.
Okay,
After the $5,000 is paid off.
there you go. After the
That's what
$5,000 is
That's
paid
the
off,
stinker.
after we pay the TIF off for the sewer, then you're gonna sit there and we're gonna have policemen that say we've got these extra homes, so now we need more police officers. We're gonna have Public Works in here saying that we've got these new roads, we need new trucks, we need more help. And so it takes a lot of 20 houses a year to pay for a new police officer or to pay for a new Public Works guy, to where Casey's comes and puts a store in, that really doesn't affect our infrastructure or help, because,
We were doing it anyway.
yeah, so it's not,
Well, what I'm saying
what I'm saying is commercial brings you a whole lot more money than,
I totally understand that. But what I'm saying is that's indoor general fund, which is money you just put into the general fund and then you use the TIF money. That's compensating the general fund for the TIF money you're pulling out.
Because you remember the TIF money out, if you try to put residential, you lose the 55 besides 90% rollback, and then you have the LMI set aside on residential. So putting TIF and residential in the TIF, other than paying that rebate off, is you're not generating anywhere near what you do with commercial,
Right.
obviously.
I guess I don't understand why you don't throw TIF, residential in with the TIF, because
It doesn't matter where if we're asking $1 million, it doesn't matter where it comes from. The county doesn't designate where it comes from.
No, you have access to
It's
2.1 million. You're asking for 376 this
You
year.
can say it comes from commercial or residential. It really doesn't matter, does it?
No, but you're,
Well, residential, you have to LMI, you don't get as much when you
That's right.
go through residential.
So we do have to designate what.
well, that if you put, like on the Meadows, we'd have to put LMI set aside, which we can use to pay for stuff on the
Right.
part of time anyway.
which is which is a win-win. So on that same scenario, I'll just give you that quick scenario. If we tipped residential at $28 a thousand, it's $123,000 on 20 houses. If you tipped residential.
I don't understand how you can TIF it as a gain when you're already giving the money away that you're receiving.
We're giving the 1309 away.
Right.
Right.
We're already giving it away. So then we're going to give it, you know, I
We're
just
gonna
don't.
lose it twice.
So,
Yeah.
but so here's the thing with the houses. You always at every TIF project you have one chance to get. You'll have one chance to put in TIF the houses. You don't. There's no value if you don't TIF it when it's a brand new house.
So that's in the first year.
So what you do, tipping goes back. So like the meadow, or not the meadows, Little Lights. We waited till it was built, then you go back the year. So we went back to when it was bare ground. So, and like the fabrication place, that's the base right there is 0. It's an exempt property. So so if you ever do the Kroll site, you're going to have the base is going to be 0. So you'll get everything.
And like I said, if you ask for all of your growth, if you ask for the TIF of all of your growth every single year for 20 years, then we get no growth for 20 years. Our general fund stays the same because we're pulling everything out of our growth, pulling everything out as TIF, and doing projects with it. So our year-to-year operating costs stay the exact same. So then the argument that I had was, well, we still have our houses. But if you want to put the houses in there, well, then we lose that too.
But aren't we making improvements?
Yeah, all that TIF money is going to improve projects.
That's great, but how do you improve services?
Let's remember, you can't use TIF money to pay for police, all that personnel and equipment costs are not
Yeah, but
Is
eligible.
there a way to use
Here's my question, though.
70%
I
of
get
our?
that, but here's my question too, is how much are we paying for projects out of our general fund right now that won't be being paid on projects by using TIF money?
Yeah.
That's what we
Exactly.
the general fund.
That's the magic number.
Yeah, I mean, I think
we're
that's,
paying-
That's where it's all
that's the right,
coming from.
that's
That's
the
what I'm
right
saying, but if
question.
we're paying $500,000 a year out of the general fund
On
on
projects.
projects,
Right.
and we TIF that instead, that's $500,000 that's.
Still in your general.
It's only
Still
cost us a
general.
third
So,
of that.
so the
That's the
500,000
magic-
would cost
that's
you
the
1/3.
dance.
I don't think we're paying 500.
I'm not saying we are. I made it up.
Round number.
I made it up.
Number out there.
We're struggling. We have library, police, parks.
That was just an example.
I just made that
Those
number
are
up, I
all-
was just saying, that's.
I think most of them would be
Those
public
are all
works projects
public,
that you would
general fund
talked about that they do
departments.
in-house.
But I guess the example would be we beefed up public works budget to do some smaller projects. These are
Yeah.
Small
Yes.
projects.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just-
public works is used to that.
Exactly.
So
Well, the streets is used to
that's
that.
easy. That's
I was just saying, there's some sort of number
There
we're
is a
taking out of the
number.
general fund that are being put
And
on
there is a
projects
balance
that you'd balance out. So you could say that, yeah, we're not adding
I would have to
73,000.
But those
But-
projects have to be listed.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but in the
You can't just
future,
fix
if
a
you're.
manhole on Main Street and call that a project.
Yeah. No, this would be
Well, no, that
for,
would
this
be
would be
under
for
just
capital.
operating budget. I'm talking about like legit projects. that
So did
we
they
sit
do
here and
this-
Say we're gonna.
Did they do
not a
this project
manhole
out
anymore.
here, out of the general fund, Poplar Street?
Probably.
Let me remember.
That was an agreement with the school. They
Say
paid
that
for it.
again.
We paid them
Right.
back.
No, it wasn't.
School
They bailed.
project?
They did this.
This one, didn't we do Poplar Street a couple of years ago there?
No.
They
Just
paid
a
for it.
different,
The city
the
paid it
parking
back.
lot up by the library.
But
They, for the parking
paid
lot
for
up
that.
at the library.
Oh,
They did
we
the
paid
parking
for
lot.
Oh,
We
50 grand.
we were
So
gonna
69
do,
grand.
it was gonna be a whole deal. We were going all the
Yeah.
way up.
Yeah.
And then the school said, no, it's not.
So did we, so if we paid the
Yeah.
school
Well,
for
I
some of
kinda-
it,
It was,
That's
and then they
easy
got
money,
the new
yeah.
administration. and
probably
that
paid
was-
out of general fund, you could have just paid out.
That was $50,000.
So that easy catcher, 1 year of 50,000, you take the TIF. And so instead of having 16,000, you lose 16,000 in your general fund, but you're gaining 50,000 that you wouldn't. So in theory, you're netting $34,000 in your general fund because you asked for it worth.
That's what I was saying. You gotta find the magic. There's
But
gotta be
that's,
some
I mean,
sort of-
capital
we're not
improvement
gonna
plan
find
is
it
your
by next
budget, you
week,
should be
but
able
There's
to.
gotta be some sort of magic number we're at with.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain to figure out what we could get decided for next week to certify another 50 grand,
Couldn't it be one of the other?
but I don't know if we're gonna be able to do that.
You could say it's for Johnson Cedar Road, that's.
I'd like to start designing Johnson Cedar Road.
And
and
what's
call that
saying that you
project.
can't tip one year, take that extra
Mhm. You can,
every other year
take it, you can,
or
as long as you
whatever.
have a debt in a project, you can take all, none, some of it, you know, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah.
Kind of jerk the school.
But you gotta
county
have
around
a
it.
plan of what projects are coming up in.
Which is what you're doing next.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
is-
maybe we need to put this to rest for a while.
so that Cedar Johnson Road though, hold on. The Cedar Johnson Road is our roundabout. Could any of that part be considered Cedar Johnson Road?
Yes.
Yeah, they're coming,
Yes, that's the intersection
they're
of Cedar
doing
Johnson Road.
100 yards down Cedar Johnson
Yes.
Road.
And the,
And
and Main Street.
And Main Street.
On the tip.
I mean, what I would do to make everything, before we got an agreement with the county, I would put that as a project and put the exact amount we're paying the county, and then nobody has a question what we're talking about. And that's your debt. Your debt is the agreement you're paying the county.
It's a 2080 agreement coming to us next meeting from the school.
I haven't
heard any.
I haven't
thought it was
drafted
gonna
it,
be
but
coming.
did we have plans and stuff I can attach? Are we all that far down the road?
We may not be ready for it.
Yeah.
I don't think we are.
Okay.
But if we
I
want-
would assume you
So-
at least got a draft back.
So we need to have a project in place before we agree to that 2080 agreement. Is that
But
what you're trying
if
to say?
we want to do,
With the school.
if you want to use
And the
TIF money, you have to have the in the plan before the project starts. You can't say, oh, project already started. It's got to be beforehand. Just like we did with the Meadows and Little Lights, all those things. We did those before we approved the rebate agreements. Same
So
concept.
would we need to have, an interfund transfer before next, we would have to have that.
Well, but here's the thing. If you figure out if you have the payment you're going to make next fiscal year is going to be 50,000 or whatever.
It is.
But you,
That may
you-
come this fiscal year. No?
No, it'll
I'm
be-
sorry, next
it'll
fiscal.
be next fiscal.
December of 20.
But you could ask for the money for the rest of the payments. You just gotta have it done before the agreement with the school is done.
Would we have to do like some kind of document indicating?
They're
the
paying-
vote from general
Can we get
fund?
on?
No, the agreement with the school should be the debt. You're
Oh, the agreement with the school would be the
you're
debt?
agreeing by contract to pay the school $100,000.
And
That's your debt.
that would count.
It's no different than the development agreement with the Meadows or Little Lights. You're agreeing to pay $150,000.
That does not exist at the present.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
before, that would have to be in here before we approve the agreement.
Well, that's
That-
really
that would
something
be out
that'll
of-
for next
That'd be,
December.
Yeah,
Next
but
time.
you,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, then you'd actually have what the schedule is for payments. So, I mean, if you're only paying 15,000 a year or 20,000 a year, you just ask 20,000 when you,
Every year.
until it's paid off.
Okay, let's get started on, we need to move on. I guess Redmond, go ahead.
All right, so before we probably get started, I probably should have everyone put a date and draft on top of your document. So we're gonna have probably a number of different ones, different drafts before this is all said and done with. So I did ask, did I hear a question? Oh, I did ask department heads to put together their anticipated capital projects. Although I know that we have some major ones, we're going to start with the major ones. If we have time, then we can get into the smaller ones. If we don't make it through, there's plenty of time to ask more questions later. And then I also have a number of I have a number of blank pages at the end so we can add projects as they come to us. So one of the things I heard just now about combining the Hoover Highway project into the Cedar Johnson County Road project. So we can do that. In my mind, I had it separate, And I was waiting to, and the reason I didn't have it reflected in here because I was actually waiting to see if we would be able to take advantage of having Johnson County actually carry the debt service on it, and we just enter into a 28E agreement repayment plan with them. And I hadn't gotten heard back. They were going to see if there was a 28E agreement, which they can use as an example. The engineer recalled one case that they used that format, and it was a 3-year repayment schedule. So if we make payments or at least make savings in the lead up to the project, we might be able to get a year under our belt and then enter into a 3-year agreement and then have, our potential option paid for with a 4-year allotment of payments. But for all intents and purposes, we can also add it in as a part of the Cedar Johnson County Road project too. So just so that you know, I didn't consider that, but that's something we can certainly do. So now I couldn't find a lot, although I know there was some initial work done on some early design on Cedar Johnson County. And but I had gotten an email that Dave had sent out some time ago, and I think he was looking at one of our previous projects and thought it would be somewhere around 4 times the expense that we spent on that project. So using that email, I just put together a planning number of $3.2 million. But that's, again, just a planning number. I don't know if it's going to be more than that. And I see Dave is there. Dave, if you have anything you could add to that number, if you think that number is a fair planning number, or if you will offer another number, we can start there.
I'll have to take a look at that in more detail, Redmond. I couldn't give anything off the top of my head.
Fair enough. So I think overall our potential planning funding strategies, obviously it could be a normal tax increase. If we accept just doing a normal GO bond type of thing, I'm sure that's going to raise our debt service up. I tried to also utilize Maggie's report on our debt obligations and just using the sliding scale of, I'm trying to find that in here real quick so I can look at it directly. Yeah. Just looking at our remaining GO debt capacity as a guiding point. We could plan on something like 1.7 million in the first year, another 1.1 million in the second, and another 1.2 million in the third years, which would be enough to cover, I think, the initial estimate. So if we were thinking 3.2 and just using the general obligation pay down of our debt, that would give us like a 3-year period. Now that might shoot our debt obligation. It will shoot our debt obligations back up where we were trying to get away from having capacity load of around that 70% mark and all that. Of course, that would do that. But again, I think I've used this as an example. This is almost like having another Cubby Park project because it's that big. So
what project you talking about?
We're Cedar Johnson Crow. This is the very first one on the first page. Cedar Johnson County Road project. So there's that. The capital improvement levy, I think we're all familiar with that now. Is there any questions on it? I could talk a little bit about it. I'm going to assume. Okay, so we're all. Last year was the first year it was active. We wind up taking moving some of our water debt around. So we didn't have a lot of savings to fill in the gap. So the goal was to really only use it to backfill, once we pay off our debt service, to backfill the capital improvement levy with whatever dollars we had available. Well, it just so happened that we had enough debt that we didn't have anything that we could really backfill. So we did not increase our capital service levy. We kept it stable like we had said we would do. But in that year, we just didn't have anything that we could backfill and have a rolling capital improvement levy that would roll over every year. So it's still at zero. But it does present, and like state law, we can, in any given year, go up to 65 cents in that levy. So we don't know, since we've never used it, how much that 65 cents, we can probably do some estimations on how much that will raise. But it's one of those things that might be available to help us close the gap on a project like this over several years. So I think that the activity I kind of identified will probably start in year 2 with design work. And I had construction kind of estimated, depending on the season that it gets started, if it's going to be fall or spring, construction might roll into a year 3 or a year 4 on here. So the other side of that is how much time you give yourself to try and raise money, or do we just go into a traditional GO bond process, which is also, has its plus and minuses.
Can I ask a question before we go any further? Why in the hell do we keep paying attention to the west side of town? These people on the east side of town have been paying taxes for how many goddamn years, and we don't do nothing for them.
Well, the people on the west side don't even have water pressure. We live on
agree
Chip,
with you,
and
yes,
we
I
live
agree.
on Chip and Seal Road.
So do they on the east side.
Well, they got water
We have
pressure.
4-inch water main on the east side. We can't even hook a fire truck up to it.
Can't-
We're in the city limits, and you can't use a fire truck on the east side of town.
Well, if you look in here, you'll see that that's part of a capital improvement plan.
Clear back here, it ain't gonna get done. It's
Well,
been
that's what
on
we're
the-
here for. We're here to
It's
prioritize.
been on here for 3 years.
Okay,
It's not
you
gonna
talked
get
a lot
done.
about Cedar Johnson Road.
So I was gonna say from page, I think it's 12.
What would be our goal tonight? I'd like to come up with, let's say, 5 in 5 years, and 5 to 7 projects we get done in the next 5 years. Is that something?
Come up with that tonight. So
Not the pace we're going.
my theory would be is we just kind of went through all of them, and each councilman make a note on the bottom of the page whether they think it's a high priority, a medium priority, a low priority. We turn these in, he brings us a list. It's just like goal setting.
Give them a number, 1 through
Or just put
Well,
high
example.
priority,
high, low,
high, low,
high, medium,
medium.
low.
He brings the high ones back and we talk about that. We figure out which ones we can afford, which ones, how we make it happen. One of the
Some of
things,
them don't have dollars amount. So I can't, I'm
well,
guessing.
there's some things
Yeah, so
trucks and snow
trying
plows.
to
I
get
mean, I
dollar
don't,
amounts.
how many
That's not a
times
capital
have we
improvement.
talked about trucks and snow plows come out of your regular budget?
That's not a capital.
You
improvement.
budget for it with what you're provided, and that's that. That shouldn't be part
Yeah,
of
I'm not-
the police department
They're not in tonight's discussion.
equipment replacement. Shouldn't be part of our CIP plan.
So just to, I guess, take a little exception to that, in a proper CIP, you would have those things in that portion. Now, maybe not the personnel aspects, but anything that's equipment or asset related usually goes in your capital improvement plan. I know that we probably hadn't had that in the past, but to have a true capital improvement plan, those things belong.
They need to have an interdepartment capital improvement plan.
Well, you have a capital improvement plan for your whole organization.
I mean, it's been directed year after year. you know that X amount of dollars gets put in the police budget every year for a new police car, correct? You know that.
Mhm.
So we don't need to discuss that tonight. That
So-
doesn't need to be part of this.
Where that comes in, there could be other resources brought to bear on that obligation outside of just general fund. And by it being in your capital improvement plan, you allow other opportunities like your capital improvement levy to pay for those certain things, or at least assist in those certain things. Because as we know, anything that can be paid with that has to be in a capital improvement plan to be by state law legal to be paid for. So it doesn't mean that you're having to prioritize it any less or more than anything else. It just means that it's an asset that's being identified and showed in your capital improvement plan. Your capital improvement plan will then get weaved into your overall budget. So you'll have a capital improvement section of your budget where you'll still be able to do the same thing we've done in previous budgets, prioritize what our goals are and all those other things. So just because anything's at the back of the booklet doesn't mean it's prioritized any less than the other. My goal is to try and go through as many of these as you want, let you ask the questions that you may have on any of these items. And then I try to put together what's some real basic projections, cost projections on there. But yeah, I don't have the projections on all these. And each one of these, we would probably have to do a financial strategy on how to get to close to paying for some of those things. Some of the things there's a little bit more filled in than others because we have some engineer estimates to guide us, and we can kind of plan based on some of the information that Maggie's given us and try and, work within the margins of there. My goal has always been to try and work without having to propose tax increases.
Which water main project on the east side is the most important?
Yeah.
Does anybody know?
That we know.
Is it the one that goes up college?
Which water main project on the east side is the most important?
We have them prioritized based off of getting fire protection to that area. So we actually have the water main being engineered right now from 4th Street to 5th Street on College, and that's supposed to go in yet this year. So then after that, we either go up East Orange or East College. We were thinking East College from 5th to 6th, simply because we're already going to be working in that area. We could continue up and we'd have a new main from, so I would say East College. You do I don't care if we do it out of our budget, we can do it a block at a time. If it's anything other than that, anything more than a block at a time, we have to do it out of either you have to bond for it or you have to come up with money some other way. But yeah, East College and then 6th Street would to me be the priorities.
Page 29, that's what I got here.
So can you do the water main and the street, like Green Street was done back in 2012? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So can you do those two projects together as one every year?
Not every year, no. Nope. We can do
one block at a time every year.
We can't out of water. We wouldn't have enough simply because we have to somehow fund painting our water towers and maintaining them.
No, it wouldn't all come out of water. Some would have to come out of the street.
No, I know. But the water main projects and building up enough money to either have
one's a road project, one's okay.
Yeah, because one comes out roads and streets, one comes out water, but we don't have enough capital money, I guess, to do a water main project and save up enough to paint the tower. They're supposed to be painted every 15 years. I mean, 15 to 20 years is the max.
So you have what, 6 blocks that have 4-inch main still? over on the,
1, 2, 3, yeah, probably 6. All the way up 6th Street. The 2 blocks on College between 4th and 5th, and the block between 5th and 6th on East Orange.
And that's if we try to do everything in year one. There's multiple years. We could plan to do one in year one, another in year two, or we could plan to fund those projects in different years too, to spread out.
Right. The only way we could afford one every single year is if we did 1 block of water main and we did a street project, but the street project would have to be basically like half done in-house. That's how we did East Orange. We did, or East Green, I'm sorry. We did the driveway approaches. We did all the backfilling, the grading, the alleys. But I mean, we're building up our crew to where I would hope that we could do a little more of the in-house, like some of the curb and gutter and some of the intakes, which might make it more affordable. I have to get to that point where I got that other employee and where everything's
Okay, so my
running,
was
where I can do that.
pick a water main project, it would be College Street from 5th to 6th. I would rate that a high priority.
Right, but there's no point in doing that if we don't have. So we have to get this one done from 4th to 5th. Otherwise, there's no point in going any farther.
Yeah, okay, but that's already budgeted. Is that already?
Right. So this is good. That'll be done this year. So
Okay,
I would say the one for next year would be 5th to 6th on College.
So that's a capital improvement that.
Yep.
I'm talking about that we need to prioritize.
Okay, let me throw this in there because we're gonna be getting tip money from the Meadows. That part of that money has to go to low to moderate income, which we're assuming is that side of town. So I don't know what that number is. I'm trying to figure it out here.
I thought 7,000 is what.
Or 8,000. I think it was 8,000 a year.
8,774.
Yeah, 87.
year.
Yep, a year.
Could go to help those projects over there on the east side, water projects.
That's my theory. I didn't double check with Maggie, but that's one of the questions I was going to ask her.
If we can use that for an infrastructure
Well,
project.
Yeah, we have to
can.
put it somewhere because we're borrowing the money for TIF. But there's a third of that has to be designated to low to moderate income.
We have to
Can
prove,
that be used?
we have to prove the fact that that side of town is that though.
Low and my,
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be in the, although I looked at the right of way, College Street from 4th to the city limits is in the TIF plan already, not as a project, but as a, and the water main projects are in there. So
That is.
So you could actually use TIF money to do that. LMI, you could use that too. I would double check with Maggie.
Well, yeah, because I believe so, but I think we'll have to identify that area would have to fit within the low moderate, medium income would have to fit within the low moderate income. So I know that we talked
Relative to the rest of town?
right. It would
Is that
be
relative to the
we would
state?
have to make that like a neighborhood kind of designation thing. We were looking at something like that for the water treatment, and we looked at the village, the West Branch Village, and that would have worked for CDBG. So I know that we can probably make that breakout, but we probably would have to do that. But
West
what I
Branch as a
wanted to check.
whole, we're the highest income in Cedar County. But that doesn't, as on the average,
Yeah, that we would probably maybe take Third,
I'd like to know.
4th Street between some square and then check the medium income in that district or
Okay,
that neighborhood.
so-
or what we
so
would
you're
call it.
saying 8 to 10 years before we can get the east side of town completed, all the 4-inch out.
If they go by that method and not something else.
Yes, unless somebody, I mean, unless you guys bond for more money and do the whole east side as a big project, we can't do any more than maybe possibly 2 blocks, but it really,
That's
with
just-
the concrete replacements and everything else, it's almost impossible.
That's one source of income. We're really not trying to peg you to try and figure out where we find the money just yet. we're trying to get you just to let us know which ones you prioritize and then let us figure out how to get the money for it. We're trying to figure out how to get the money for it right tonight. That's not going, I don't even know that. That's the reason why we put it in the capital improvement plan, because it opens up all kinds of different
In
funding
other words, we
options.
could say,
Just with not roads, we
we could
tax.
say in 5 years, we want to have the east side done. Let's do a certain section of it every year. 5 years, we have it all done.
We tried that 10 years.
Well, we say
When
5,
we,
maybe.
when we
take
did the little
7.
doohickey, that was, we were supposed to make one road, take away one road of
Chip and seal.
chip and seal
We've been
every
trying
year.
Orange Street for 5 years
And we
now.
ain't got one done yet.
Yeah, we do. Green
No,
Street.
that was already done before we decided that was what we were gonna start doing. And that's not true, because we got, what, Second Street's done and parts of College Street's done, or Orange Street, I guess is what it is. Yeah, I mean,
Redone.
we've done some, but we ain't got over there into the,
It's a
what the whole
little in
thing was
between
planned
streets.
on before, yeah.
All right, I'm at a loss trying to stay organized.
I don't know, I got to looking at this to start high prioritizing them.
Yeah.
And by the time I look at the stuff that I know we either are already on the hook for doing or need to do no matter what, there's no sense in me going through this because it's all figured out.
You're talking about Main Street.
Well, between you do the turn signal and Cedar Johnson Road and the BP turn lane and the Greenview connection and the Wapsie Creek widening.
Okay.
And
The BP turn lane, we don't need to worry about that for a year or two. I don't
What do you
think.
want?
So
I want to see it built out and
So I have year 3 where I suspect we'll get a TIF request. And I don't know what it
I'd
looks
put
like.
that on hold till year 3 then. The BP turn lane.
Yeah, because we can expect that they're going to have at least a year dealing with the National Park Service, going through all their processes.
Correct.
well, except that would it make it sense to put that on our list and have it ready to go?
Yeah, since we know.
So that we know as soon as he starts adding stuff, in case it happens really fast, then the very first year, all that stuff hits the TIF
Yeah,
asking.
this is a
Where would it
5-year. We're looking down the road 5 years. I know we're real focused on next year because it's really coming upon us, but we got to be looking at things in a 5-year outlook.
I mean, you got.
So we know that's gonna happen.
On here that aren't done on this one.
Yeah.
Makes it real easy.
And then,
I was kidding, but I just said, I mean, if you look at the list of what we already got on here, you just take the whole packet and just staple it to the back of this thing and say, hey, here. I'm not saying it's realistic, but I mean, the rate we're going, getting anywhere, you might as well. I mean, because you look at some of the things on here, like Colton said, there's like 8 or 9 things we've been talking about as a big deal for
well,
a long time, and
I mean,
a lot of them are expensive.
I suppose we need to put it in the plan and, have a plan and put it in there, but then, at the end of the day, we're only gonna have about 5 years worth of stuff that we're gonna be able to afford to do.
Maybe, I mean, you look at some of
The
it,
thing
this
is,
Johnson Cedar Road almost.
New stuff thrown at us, though.
Except if you don't have this, everything's new.
Well, I thought we had this.
This
I
gives
mean,
us
we
another
talked
pool of
about
money
it.
to pull from if we add these to this list.
Chip for how many years? I thought that,
Well, the College Street Bridge is done. We had a 5-year plan 6 years ago,
Yep.
and it's done. Went pretty well. I guess this is an attempt to start over with a new 5-year plan. 6 or
but
8,
the only way
6
that
or 8,
got
10
done was
projects.
because of the grant. We couldn't have done that on our own. There's no way.
The bridge, no, but we knew the grant was part of it, so that was
We
kind
might
of
have
a,
been able to, because the grant money, I mean, to go by their specs, we had to spend twice as much to build the same thing that we would have done.
but we,
Yeah.
We would have got a bridge.
We would have got a bridge, but it wouldn't have been $1.7 million or whatever it ended up.
and we ate beans for 2 years because some of the projects didn't go too bad.
Soil mitigation. Heating. When do we have to have that?
22,
22.
fiscal year 22.
Calendar year
Calendar.
22.
So that's, would be year 2 on this schedule that we need to have. I don't know how much that has been estimated at.
No, I thought we were gonna dump it up by the water plant and let it sit up there for a while.
What's that, $200,000 project?
I don't know if it's that much.
100, yeah.
Matt, do you have any idea what it might take to remove that soil and move it to where?
Yep. I think Dave had an estimate at one time if we had to take it to a landfill. But then we had that other salt spill that we cleaned up and hauled up to the water tower. And I think as long as DNR is still okay with that, I don't see any reason why we couldn't haul it up there. So we're talking whatever it costs to haul that out and whatever it costs to haul in new dirt.
We have
Which I
an idea how much we're talking now about?
I want to say it was like a foot. I think it was like a foot deep over the whole west side of his lot, which is probably a 1/4 acre lot. Maybe it's bigger than that. I think he had 3/4 of an acre on the whole thing. So it's probably a 1/4 acre lot on the west side. And I think it was about a foot deep on the whole thing.
2,000 square feet. cubic feet.
So we're thinking 60,000? I'm just trying to get a planning number together.
I don't know if you put, I think 60 is an awful lot, but sure, put 60. Just a heads up, my phone might die and I do not have a charger with me. And so if I disappear, that's where I'm at. Just gone.
All right, we got to figure out how we're going to proceed here, so we're not here until 9 o'clock. I was thinking 8 o'clock would be out.
Well, why don't we pick the projects that you want to have more explanation on? And I think Colton's idea of
Can we all pick 5, 10, or high, medium, low priority? We could all do that.
Well,
And we could,
I would say 2 of them are almost automatic. One is the school turning lane, and then the Cedar Johnson Main Street Hoover Highway intersection.
That's not on one of you, but
Cedar John, the first one.
which one?
that's Cedar Johnson Road. He's just talking about the.
Oh,
I'm talking about the
Hoover
intersection.
Highway, I call that Hoover Highway.
I personally believe if we don't do anything else, if we don't address the flooding, then everything else is a moot point. If you let your fire station go underwater, then what the hell?
Oh, that was one of my high priorities.
I got that as extremely high.
the Wapsie Creek widening.
Starting to almost suit you.
And we can either roll in the highway, Hoover Highway into Cedar Johnson County Road, or we can make it a separate one. If we make it a separate one, it'd be page 34.
It's
One
separate.
added.
Separate.
Okay.
That's something that's gonna need to get done. I mean, that's next year.
Yeah,
Sounds like the soil
So-
mitigation we just have to do. So, I mean,
Yeah, that was another one I wanted to, that's what I wanted to make.
so Hoover Highway would be, I'm
soil
putting on
mitigation
page
just has to be
34.
on there, so I'm just gonna write has to be.
I'm putting that as a high priority.
Required.
Yeah.
Are there
So
any
we-
other things on here that are required?
We typically use top, high, and moderate as our scale, so using that same model.
Said high, medium, low.
We
Colton's
do high
putting high, medium, low.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
putting high, medium.
I'll
high
figure it
priority.
out, but we typically use top, high, and moderate.
I don't want to change the rules now in the middle of the day.
Well, high, medium, low, it can be.
I'll figure it out.
Gravel,
30
yeah.
what? 34.
Are there any other ones that are required, like Piedmont? I would assume the wastewater treatment.
Yeah,
But the wastewater treatment is kind of self-funded. I mean, it's not going to be a capital improvements project.
it's not going to be a general fund capital improvement project. It's
So,
going to be a
I'm
capital improvement
ignoring that
project, but
because
it's going to be funded
it's
out
gonna-
of sewer.
It should be part of our capital improvement plan. because
Yes,
We might be able to get some stuff.
Yeah, we could be able to use different funding for it.
So it's got to be a plan, what you're saying.
yes.
So that'd be one.
Doesn't matter what you say, it's gonna be in the plan, you know, but, you know, but,
The funding source would be sewer revenue.
yeah.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? It's,
Pretty much
you don't have to
self-funded.
put no priority on it, but it's gotta be in the plan.
It is an automatic right. And I tried to identify where I think some funding sources would be and the ones that I was able to kind of put some thought to. So page 11 was the sewer, the wastewater treatment plant.
You said page 34 was,
Yeah.
Blank.
it's
That's a
blank.
new one. That's like we're gonna
Blank.
add the highway, yeah.
Blank right in Hoover Highway.
okay.
The circle.
So are we looking at like 1 year high priority,
No.
second year priority,
All right.
third year priority? I mean, I guess I would, let's go back to Cedar Johnson Road. That's not we're gonna do it next year, but we can do a phase of it. We can design it next year. We can, you know, second, third, fourth year.
If it ends up,
We can do that one.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Same thing.
somehow we need to figure all that out.
if it ends up being a high priority, you're not gonna pay for it the first year anyway. It's probably gonna be 3 or 4 years down the road. You know, what you hope is it doesn't get past, I can't remember what he said. You don't want to go much past 5 or 6 years. You can go further out, but usually by the time you get that far out, you got a
Things
whole new
change.
list of
Yeah.
stuff that's more important, which is what we did. You know, we picked out like 20 things and then we did 10 of them. There's still 10 left on the list that are still on there, and they're probably gonna still be on there after we get done doing this much, you know? But
But if they're not on there, then you're probably not gonna do them.
you know, and sometimes, I'm not gonna say we've never clicked anything off of there, it just came out of the budget all of a sudden, we managed to figure out how to get it done. But most of them are bigger projects that don't fit within your budget.
So
I mean, at the end of the day, even the school turn lane, we figured out a way to make that work within our budget. I mean, you know,
So are we prioritizing it or not?
The capital improvement project.
I put it as a priority. What did I put? What did I
yeah,
put?
is that what you're
That's what
determining?
I'm
Yeah.
asking, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
we've already kind of, okay.
we figured out how we're paying for it already. So, I mean,
That's why I'm
actually,
asking, is it a capital improvement? Because we already know how we're gonna pay for it.
It's just like the water treatment plant. We know how we're gonna pay for it, but it's still capital.
Okay.
So one of the top priorities, I guess, I just want to make sure you notice with the Wapsie Creek widening, we're still looking at roughly a shortfall of about 129,000. So we're still looking for that, for those funds. But we're getting, you know, somewhat close. And the other thing to also kind of bank on a little bit is, I don't know if bank is the best way to say it, but we are kind of clicking along with our stormwater fund at around $5,000 a month.
90 grand a year. about.
Yeah, revenue, yeah.
I got a question since we're on this whole TIF thing. I'm pretty sure out there in the middle of that pasture is not in our TIF district. But since what we're doing is protecting stuff that is in our TIF district, is there any way we could put that project on for next year and then use TIF money?
So is the actual project area in the city limits already? Is that area in the city limits?
Yeah.
Okay. Where we're
A
doing the
part of it
project.
is,
Yes.
the Wapsie Creek widening is what we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
If it's in the city limits, I could get a project area from Dave, add that area as in the urban area, and then we can have a project. So yes, we can put that in there. My plan would be
It
to.
ain't gonna happen by next Monday.
No, it's got to be an urban renewal area, got to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
All sorts of
That's
stuff
for
like that.
next.
My feeling is to get this plan done, whatever's not in the TIF thing, you put it in there. It doesn't mean you have to use TIF, but it's in there if you have an option to do it.
Opens up financing costs.
Isn't that part of the east side when they go into that?
No.
Decide, you gotta have the actual area. It's not a right of, it's in the middle of a pasture. Basically, you'd add a creek into urban renewal area.
So,
But it's doable.
so a strategy might be move forward with the funding that we have available now. And then have, when we get closer to the end, when we run out of those funds, do a general fund loan to the project and then use that TIF to repay the general fund.
You just have to, you'd have to have the project done before you finish the project out. But like I said, once you guys have all this plan in place, we should just add them all and do it all at once. And then that way you have the option, doesn't mean you have to do it.
Question on Kroll site.
Downtown east.
What are we talking about? Continuous development activities. What? I mean,
Yeah, good
what kind of?
question.
I mean, what are we talking about here?
What are we gonna spend money there on? Because we're not planning on really spending money.
Well, I think we talked a little bit about trying to do something with the corner lot, the Miller property,
That ain't gonna happen.
As
Yeah.
far as what buying them out?
buying them out.
$250,000.
But we did talk about that as being self-funded in a way where we would use
We're
the
talking about
proceeds.
using the proceeds from the sales price, and I think we have a balance of
Correct.
maybe 150,000. So we might have close to
I'm
200,000.
kind of Tom here. Is it's even though we could pay for it, it's overpriced.
I know, I hate to.
It's one of those that
I'm holding out.
what I think we need to know the return on our investment, what that would be if we're spending that kind of money on that corner.
Or,
And
Partnership
the only
with a
way I see
developer.
that happening is we have to have a signed agreement from a developer that he's gonna be putting some property in
to
there.
purchase it.
Yeah, I don't see us buying it
I agree.
without having some kind of agreement. That'd be just ridiculous.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah,
It's just,
I guess my only.
I
other
left it
thought-
blank for a
more
reason because I had
things.
no idea how we wanted to
My only
proceed.
other thought would be on that site would be, would we want to look at having it developed, designed, so we could sell off sections of it and start rolling some of that money out now?
kind of subdivide it to sell.
Yes.
That's a more realistic approach, I think.
Well, at least now, I don't know if Kevin's heard anything from
Nope.
Adam or anything. I think they're kind of like, well, COVID came in and price of material is really high. We're not gonna do anything there. So
And they're
we're
also,
not gonna spend any money buying a piece of ground that we're not gonna build on for 2 or 3 years.
and they're also not happy with that Miller property either, so that's
Right.
giving them hesitation.
Would anybody be opposed to going through these one by one and we could come up with a consensus of,
What I have,
real quick,
in no particular order.
okay, go ahead.
Downstream flooding, Cedar Johnson intersection and road, school turn lane, Greenview connection, wastewater, East End water and streets, Greenview water main, curb and gutter Greenview, soil medication, BP Parkview, and Northwest Booster Station. All that other stuff is fluff.
I agree with all those but 3. Greenview sidewalks
That's right.
is, that's an expensive project.
Well, it was in there. He said more than that, he said curb and gutter
Curb and gutter. Oh, curb and gutter. Okay,
Are we
that'd be a low
talking, are you
priority.
talking Greenview, the whole Greenview?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so with the Miller property.
And another one,
Doesn't stop you from putting it on the list. Not saying we
That's
have to do
true.
it.
I know,
Realistically, though, our list of projects are really pretty expensive the next 5 years. I don't see us being able to, unfortunately.
the
spend
first
that
5
much
to
money.
7 there was right on, spot on with what I would agree with.
So I think what I'll do, I could take that list and give it the old Roman numeral marks, and the one that has the most marks gets prioritized accordingly. And then we'll,
Most marks from, so we would prioritize those.
Could, you know,
We make our own list, same thing.
And then I add them all up.
Here, got it here.
I know.
But back to Jody's rant. I would like to know what it would cost just to do the whole East End. I mean, just,
Yeah, one fell swoop.
yeah, I mean, the changing the 4-inch mains out. Would that be a TIF project?
Could be a SRF project too.
What's that?
State revolving loan.
Oh,
It would make the water rates pay for the water main,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would just make our water rates go $20 per thousand.
Better catch up with the sewer rates.
Sewer rates now.
I mean, but at the end of the day, if you're not willing to spend 12 years to get it all done, I mean, it's only been like that for 100. I mean, if 12 years ain't fast enough, then something's got to pay for it. You know, you're either going to raise taxes or you're going to raise water rates. That's what's
Well,
going to happen.
eventually, somebody's gonna sue. That's all I gotta say, is eventually somebody's gonna sue because it took too long to put their house up or something.
My theory is that we ought to come up with a plan that's almost just that separately. You know, that's not really part of the, or
Sub-plan.
or a capital improvement plan that's just for the east side, that, you know, X amount of our dollars are gonna be spent over there every single year, getting it done.
But see,
Kinda
it's
like
not
the
just the
800,000
east
we
side, because
Borrow on every year to
you
do a
can't-
project.
fire protection isn't to the old Greenview either, because we don't have enough pressure. You have to have that booster pump in order to hook a fire truck there. This is stuff, when you can't protect your homes, it's not just the east side. There's stuff that should have been done 15, 20 years ago.
Jody, I don't think there's anybody in here that's gonna disagree with what you're saying.
it should have been done right.
Yeah.
Right, but we're still not doing it. That's the problem, is we're still not doing it. I mean, we sit here every year and talk about this, but we're still not doing it.
But I will, to some extent, I'll take some offense to that, because in the 8-10 years I've been on here, we ain't done nothing but water main projects over there on the east side of town. It seems like every other year we're digging something up and replacing water main along Main Street. They've been doing water main projects since I've been on here. Every other year they're digging something up over there. So it's not like they're not doing nothing. It's just there was so much of it. And like he says, we can only do X amount. We can only afford to do X amount.
I'll be dead before it gets to the north end of 6th Street. I'll be dead before then.
Hopefully not in a fire.
Well, my nieces will be rich then.
Is anything over there not 4-inch?
I mean, the two options.
It's gonna take 12 years.
Or is Lancaster like a weird, like
Huh?
Lancaster have like a full-size main that's connected to a 4?
Lancaster has it.
So sitting there
I'm just
complaining
confused.
about it's not gonna, what do you want to do, Joe? Jody, what do you want to do? You want to do a 12-year plan, or do you want a $20 per 1,000 gallon water rates? Those are your choices.
To me, you already have a road, Cedar Johnson Road. Yeah, it's not in the best shape. It's not wide, but you already have that. It's not.
That's fine. The choice is, what do you want? What do you want?
I want
You want a
water.
12-year plan, or do you want $20 per 1,000 gallon water rates? Pick.
You could do a different loan on it.
They've already been paying their taxes for how many freaking
Water
years?
pays for water. Water pays for water. So if we're gonna borrow money for it, it's got to be paid by water rates. Water pays for water. That's the way we decided this worked. That's why we got the whorehouse prices now for water, because water pays for water.
Yeah, we're fairly tapped out for rates right now, water rates, I think. I got a short list of 8. Wapsie Creek widening, Hoover Highway, school turn lane, Greenview connection, Wastewater treatment. Water main College Street, on College Street, 5th to 6th, and Cedar Johnson Road. That's my short list of 7 projects. I'd love to see a bike trail, a trail connections and stuff like that, but those are easy.
So mine's gonna be the Wapsie Creek widening is our #1 priority. I put the things that we already are gonna do that we're already spoken for, the turn lane, the roundabout. I put Cedar Johnson County Road as, if not a 5th year, the 5th year of the plan. Maybe it even goes beyond. Nobody wants to see it go beyond, but it's either going to be the last year, the last thing on this plan, or the
It's a multi-year plan.
Yeah. I do believe that there needs to be a plan put aside for the east side. Whether it's a separate plan or maybe that's where we spend all our CIP money. We just do the whole thing. Just do it all now and be done with it. But again, water still pays for water, so that part of it needs to be paid back by water funds. So I don't know if the water can handle it. But if we can afford to do it every other year anyway, then I suppose we can. That $70,000 for a water booster.
You lost Matt.
That's a pretty simple thing. That's at the end of the day what we charge for water. That shouldn't be something we're dragging out.
Right.
It's $70,000 and it's helping a quarter of the town.
Got 43 pounds of pressure at the golf course.
That's average, isn't it?
I don't wash the ball off. What do you need, man?
I'm just saying, that's how much pressure's out there.
I was gonna say,
low.
is it?
I had to put
There's parts of town that have 80 pounds of pressure.
Yeah, Matt said it barely hits the qualifications, so.
I know my uncle
It's low.
complains.
I seem to have pressure at my house, but when we did the sprinkler system on the clubhouse, he came out and tested the pressure, and it averaged 43.5 pounds, which just barely got me enough that I didn't have to put a booster in.
That's
So,
$700.
Colton, do you have that list so I can make a
I just
copy
put a
of it?
bunch of highs and lows.
I'm going to give you, I got highs and lows too.
I don't
High,
know why
lows, and
this is
mediums.
on here.
So,
Mediums.
We'll give you this back. I'll
Okay,
give you my list.
You can give me the booklet back, or you can write it on a separate piece of paper and I can copy it, whatever works for you, so that I can then tally.
I guess my question is, I'm still kind of confused on how we're going to prioritize these,
Right.
because they all have a different dollar amount to them.
Yeah, so I think what I'll do is take what you give me and then I'll try to figure out how we could structure a finance strategy around paying for them.
So if we figure out our high priorities first, then we'll figure out.
And I'll bring that back and, well,
I guess I thought we'd get a little kind of that sum figured out tonight, but it's not going to happen.
yeah, but it's
The
kind of
top four are
difficult.
slam dunk. Wapsie Creek widening, Greenview connection, turn lane, and Cedar Johnson intersection.
They're going to happen. They're all going to happen, aren't they?
They need to happen.
Yeah, the good thing is Wapsie Creek, we're not that far away for funding. Turn lane, we figured out funding for that. So the question then is the remaining, what's our strategy on it?
2 of those are going to be next budget process. Greenview connection and the Hoover Highway.
Some of them may be design, so then I can
Just
find
design
funding
work
for design and
on Cedar
then,
Johnson.
yeah, look for.
Design work.
Oh, I forgot about the water treatment or the wastewater treatment.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think
we got that
design
funding
work
strategy
Johnson's
requirement
necessarily
is-
next go round.
Oh,
yeah,
Ew. Think about what we got next go round. We got turn lane to Hoover, creek widening. I mean,
But you see,
if we, I mean,
Greenview
you're
connection.
trying to rope us into a $3 million
That's the
bill
one,
or
that's
$3 or
like
$4
230
million
we
bill.
didn't really plan for.
We gotta start the
So we'll have
design
to
work
figure that.
already.
they're all typical.
I don't even have it on
No.
my list.
Yeah, we need to start the design.
You're
Maybe
talking to the
number
wrong
two.
person.
Oh, okay.
So when
I
you
will-
say slam dunk for that, I would beg to differ.
Hoover
but I
Highway,
just didn't
Greenview
say
connection.
anything. I think
I guess
it's
it
ridiculous.
depends on where it ends up falling on the list.
So we'll spend 230 on that, but not on these. That's just me.
But it shouldn't take 3
I know
years to
Jody's
plan out
this.
that street.
One winter, bid it out.
Might be worth the discussion.
Okay,
So
so
don't forget the wastewater. Did anybody say wastewater?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of just.
Doesn't matter what you're saying anyways.
It's gonna be on, yeah. That's gonna be on there regardless.
Yeah.
It's happening
So-
regardless if we put it on the plan or not, so.
All right.
So Jody, make a list, I guess, or put high, medium, low on all these or both, and we're gonna give them back to Redmond. And
Why are we putting any mediums? I mean, it's either high priority is gonna take up all the money anyway. so-
Okay, but your medium and lows could be if
Like
you want to
year 10
plan for year 8 or year 10 or, what's
You can push it out further.
what's on the list after.
the BP turn lane
Yes,
is a
sir.
medium priority for me.
See, I think it should
Greenview
be higher than
sidewalks
that.
is a low priority because I know it's not.
I guess I would rather do it like year 1 and year 2, this is what we're doing. What we think that's there, and then year 3 and 4, this is what we think we'll do in that, instead of a high and a medium.
And it's probably gonna look
We
a
can
lot
do that
what
next.
Jerry's saying once I start figuring out what we can actually.
Yeah, let's do
Before.
that after he gets some hierarchy of,
So we get some
get
numbers.
us all
and we can go-
compiled, right?
We're gonna have any numbers.
So, cause I may wind up getting to the point where we're at the brink without having to take out a geo bond or consider a tax increase. And I'll just let you know, like, this is what we do. This is how we have to do it. Kind of like what Colton was saying about the water project. At some point in time, it's going to cost. I'm going to try and work within our current budget and current forecasting based on our debt capacity that Meg predicts. But at some point, we're going to go over that. And that's where I'll give you the examples where we may have to raise taxes. And it might not even, it may be year 3.
And right now, we're at 55% on our debt capacity, is that right?
Yeah, roughly.
So can we get a consensus tonight on where we want to, what's our max that we want to get to? That we were willing to go to?
Well, that
70%,
should be
75%?
80% was pretty
ability to
uncomfortable.
repay, Jerry.
What's that?
Your debt capacity, I don't think that what we have is a concern. Our ability to repay the debt is the big issue. We need to figure that out. That governs
Like,
how much we.
That's drilling down.
I guess at one
another
time we
layer.
were at 80, over
We
80%.
were
Somehow we
84,
must have
5.
figured out how
That
that
was
was going to get.
uncomfortable.
Well,
Well, it is uncomfortable, but at some point there, we were trying to, we must have had it figured out how we were going to pay for it, or we wouldn't have got there.
No, there was no other choice, is what it was.
no, I don't think we really had it figured out.
Yeah.
We just
When
hoped
Joe's
we
gonna
would
be
be able to
hard.
meet it. There wasn't
So
any
Cody Party and I
scientific-
did that.
And we did have to raise taxes, I think, twice overall.
And that.
Once
that
during our
happens if
time,
you
but
don't
another time
really
before
know.
me.
I'm an 80% guy. I don't ever like to see that number.
I
go
was-
above 80.
I was
looking at
uncomfortable.
87.
I voted no and threw a fit and went home and kicked holes in my wall. So,
I think you did.
We made 86%.
yeah.
Where are the holes?
At least I just throw a fit here. I don't get holes in my
So,
wall.
So 70%, 60%.
Okay,
You
so-
know, it gives me some idea.
Under 80.
just so we can we get a number right now? I mean, we're at 55%. If we went to 70, what would that number be? I mean, how much can we spend from 55 to 70 to get into our debt?
For instance, the last go round, we borrowed $800,000 a year for 5 years.
Kind of gives me an idea how much we.
If you guys had a choice, it was like $500,000 a year, 800 and 1.3.
Yeah, I always like to do
Selected
it the
the middle
reverse
route.
of what Maggie does, so I can actually see what's left.
I thought was-
So I always have to do a separate table because it's hard for me to look at the numbers going down like this. But we can figure, I mean, I can figure that out, 70.
That's what I just wanted to make
70%,
sure.
what that looks like. I'm gonna. Yes,
Do you understand what I'm trying
I
to get
am.
to though?
I
Just
do.
to see how much what we're able to,
For instance,
Buy
buying
for
$500,000 a year for 5 or 6 years. Is that what you're getting at?
well, that 15%, what does that dollar amount to? That we can do projects with to get to 70%. We're at 55 now. What's that dollar?
yeah.
Is it $1 million? Is it $500,000? What is that number? That's
I don't know
what
how
I'm,
to figure that out.
well, it's off of our revenue.
Yeah,
So,
it's basically reverse engineering the remaining geodeck capacity line that she has here. I'll have to do it reverse and then figure out what 70% ends at.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe on this for the CIP, maybe I am uncomfortable taking it all the way up to 80. Because if that's the top threshold, we don't want to go over anyway. We don't want to spend everything on CIP, because what if something comes up and we need 10% of our,
70 or 75.
you know,
Kind of like that we haven't even talked about, which I just want to bring it up real briefly, is Main Street eventually is going to need a new water main, because that thing's 100 years old and it crumbles about every time. So that's a project that boom, all of a sudden you could just go.
We've
we have
got
to
bad
do this
water
and we
mains
don't
at
have the money.
Greenview, too.
Yeah.
Greenview water mains are terrible.
So I'm just saying that I know that that's a 100-year-old pipe in there that they have trouble hooking onto when it breaks. So
Yeah.
you're right. I don't think we want to get to 80 because we want to have some room that we need to borrow money
Well,
for
and
the project.
the other thing is, I know we kind of been pushing back the downtown, finishing phase 4, the downtown sidewalk thing. I know he's been saying that, but I just came back from a conference where folks have been saying ADA concerns. Cities have been getting dinged on not being in ADA compliance. So usually, you know,
So
it's something to keep in mind. We just can't keep on ignoring it. At some point in time,
Well,
we
depends
got
on what
to
you
address it.
count as it, because you can get up and down. There's only one staircase that you can't, but you can go walk down and get up.
Exactly.
You can go
That's
walk
That's too
down and
steep.
get
That'll
up.
never be ADA compliant. The alley, too steep. That would never pass.
but you can cross over the street and be on the
You
south
can go
side of the
around.
street.
Yeah, you can go around down by the, yeah. It's all ADA except right by the alley and then the
Right.
corner on the bank.
To me, it's just like one up Main Street. We wouldn't have spent $200
Issue is-
dollars on that. All the ADA was on the other side of the street.
Does it pose a hardship to someone? That's
Yeah,
the issue.
I hear you. I don't know if that'll fly, but
I
I know it was directly addressed in our conference, and there has been cities that have had to put in action plans because they were out of compliance. And then it's kind of like the SRF. You're dictated on when you're going to spend that money then. So you don't want to be in that position, obviously.
we could
So-
close that alley off.
in the ways we've always paid for that in the
Close
past,
the other end off.
because we've done most all of the other
Make that a
sidewalks,
1% rate.
was we
from the corner all the way down.
used, there was a $13,000, $15,000 revolving loan fund that the
Yeah, room there.
Main Street had. Somehow we swallowed that, kept it. I think we kept it as a revolving
We
loan.
still
fund.
have that on our
I
books.
think we got $70,000 now.
Is it
or-
is it 100,000?
Okay, it's 130, 40,
More
37,000.
than I thought.
There you go. So that's how we paid for it in the past was we used the revolving loan fund to pay for the sidewalk projects. We assessed each of the property owners, and the ones that were good paid and the ones that weren't didn't. But and then we made up, we paid for some of it. It
About
wasn't-
80%. I
Yeah,
would
it
say.
wasn't 100% on us. but-
Because, yeah, because the city had to pay for like a portion of it out to the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was good. That worked out pretty
And it
well.
made it to where it wasn't such a hardship for,
The ones on the corner suffer the most.
So do we have any estimate of what that would cost? Because 130,000 seems like it could go a long way.
Not on that project.
not on that one.
Not on that one.
There's a reason we didn't tackle
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's the why it kept getting left.
Probably not triple that.
Wastewater treatment.
Okay, what if, let's
But
finish
there,
up.
that might be one of those things where they all want those Main Street grants so they can go, yay, we got a Main Street grant, you know, maybe if we put something like that together, a plan, maybe Main Street, if they're so worried about ADA, then let them put their money where their mouth is.
Could be something year 5, roll that out further along, but
So I think we're
Okay,
gonna have about 4 or 5 that were probably all.
Nick and Jody are my last list, folks. Nick, you got a list for me?
I think I differ from what everybody else said on one thing, and that's it. To be 100% honest, do not think Greenview Connection is a high priority, in my opinion.
You've never lived out there for 25 years.
That's,
Yeah, but I would say that
I don't think so either. I agree with you.
I don't think it's a high. I don't think it's a high priority. What I would say is more high priority for out there would be your water mains, and the water mains on the other side of town. I would say are more important than the.
Think about the kids that don't have a safe way to get to town.
They go down that way anyway.
In the middle of winter.
I mean, I get it.
Just to
I just don't. I mean, it's like you said, it's been that way for how long? I've been here.
65, 64, that development was built.
That's just. I think that's the only thing I differ from.
Okay,
everybody else's was.
What else are we gonna do tonight?
go to work.
What?
Go to work.
You gotta work yet tonight? No, sorry about that.
Other than that, I got Watchet Creek, the school turn lane, Hoover Highway Circle, and that east side water and roads, the north end booster, and Cedar Johnson, and then the waste treatment plant, because that's just a given.
Okay. I'm with Colton. I think the east side, we could come up with a sub plan under spend 300,000 to 400,000 every year over there. Easy. Chip it.
It's like Colton said, I don't know how we do it without raising water rates, because water has to pay for water. And I'm not in favor of raising water rates.
Even in a capital improvements project, you suppose? Just to,
Once they go up, they never go down.
You know, that's water pays for water. That was the rules. I mean, you know, and if it
That's a
doesn't
strong
pay for water,
practice.
then
I
where's it
can't argue
coming?
against it.
It's coming from out of the general fund. So water can't pay for public works or whatever, you know, so we already take so much out of the general fund for, police and fire and all the other things.
But I will say, if we can manage to get funds into that capital improvement levy, that can kind of be like a miscellaneous kind of pool where you can help those kind of projects that doesn't necessarily have the funding in those particular areas, or could use some augmenting or some assisting.
I mean, and the thing is, just too, right now, like Kevin said, all those streets on the east side are already in an urban renewal project. So it doesn't even have, it could be TIF.
Yeah, they can be too. They can.
yeah, they should.
So you don't even have to use water pays for water. You can just TIF it and pay for the project over there that needs to be done. I mean, there is the LMI stuff too aspect of it, but I would
Which
like
could
to,
be a
I would
source
like
of
to know, I
funding.
would personally, since I live over there, I would like to know more about that before we just decide to classify where I live as low income.
Well, and so
I kind of,
It already is.
it's not that low.
Well,
Thanks for
it's
keeping the
already
curve low,
classified.
son.
There's $200,000 some homes over there. That's not, I mean, compared to over here, that's It's still
That's
not that
why I
low.
say
And all
you
of a
have
sudden,
to actually get the
what's
medium.
the cost of that house
Yeah.
gonna be if all of a sudden you label that as low income side of town?
I don't think
You
the
can-
cost of the house matters. It's. cost
What
of
I'm
the-
saying is
the value of
this.
The income.
If you're trying to sell your home on that side of town, which half the town lives in, and you, all of a sudden the city labels your area as a low income part of town, what's that gonna do to the home values? That's all I'm saying. And speaking partially because I do live over there, but also speaking partially, so does a lot of the other part of the town. If you just label part of the town of,
The ghetto.
which I
Like,
beg
I'm
to
in
differ
Rancho
that, I would beg to
Treasure.
differ that it's not, but I mean, as soon as you,
That's what.
We don't have tracks in
It's always
town.
Yeah.
been that.
as soon as you put an
Took the
official
tracks
label
out.
on it, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, you got a good point.
So what about putting our water towers in the urban renewal plan, so then we can TIF those every time they need to be repainted, and we don't have to be socking money away every year. Cause I'm so sick of listening about them damn water towers. I am tired of it.
How often do we paint them?
If we ain't painting them, we're washing them.
Yeah, but if we can get them washed for as cheap as that guy washed, then we can wash them every year. That was pretty cheap.
Did
A
it?
lot of that's dictated by
A day.
code, not necessarily
Yeah.
by Matt's
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
So washing
That
and painting,
amazes
the
me.
What he
code.
charged like $4,000 or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
4,800.
It was low.
In a weekend.
But why not TIF that? That would be, then that puts money in our pocket to do water projects that we are putting aside for painting towers that we
Is that the
only
one
do
that's
every
already-
20 years.
That's water tower number 2.
Yeah. It
So
is.
it's already in their renewal area because they're already paying for that building of it out of the, which I think is happening.
Oh,
We just painted the other one. Or was it? No,
Yeah.
I think we
About
painted
5
it.
years ago.
Yeah, it had been that long ago.
So water tower number 2 is in the urban renewal and the project list.
You'd have to make the
Number
project
two's
be
out there.
painting,
Yeah.
not, this is construction of the tower, but.
I think,
you can
yeah, I
make
think
it
we're still
be
paying
painting.
for it.
Water tower maintenance.
Yeah,
Can you
it's
call it
fine.
maintenance?
Fine.
Okay, let me work on that.
So how does the water towers work? This one supplies what part of town?
It's all looped.
They're all
They're all
looped.
looped
together.
They
Yeah.
both go in the
All-
same pipe system.
So
Another
one
reservoir.
goes down, we still
Another
around
reservoir is all it is.
everything.
With 2 reservoirs.
All right, I have one last question. Everything we have listed here in Covey Park, which is a parking lot, 70-foot baseline extension.
That should be able to be paid out of the,
Do we got any money left? Do we have any money left in Covey Park for some of that?
There's money in Covey Park.
I would like.
Melissa's there.
Yep. Yes, there is money there. Possibly not for all of it, but for some of it. And especially if we do that parking lot in-house with Public Works, if you guys make that a priority, that will help a lot.
Okay.
Thought we did make it a priority.
So it
Okay,
sounds like
thanks,
we
Melissa.
We got COVID.
have like 135,000
Yes.
to answer your
And that's not money allotted to go to WAPSI?
Some of it was, I talked about taking 250 out of the Covey Park, and we only took, I believe, 200,000.
Maybe a refrigerator or cooler or 2 to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she can tell you what she needs to buy yet. She did buy, I thought she bought a refrigerator. Maybe.
We still need to get a refrigerator, but I was able to find a lot of the other equipment on an auction. So we should be okay for that, except we have enough to get started. We just have the old refrigerators from Summer League Field. We just don't have new ones right now.
But yeah, so there's some of that competing interest there, but I think we can do both, and then
and we still have
and
lots
we're
of
close
money.
enough to the rest of WAPSI. I think we can get there.
Yeah, that's used to pay the loan.
So I'm feeling better about Covey Park then, that parking lot and baseline extension. Fellas, God, I wish I could volunteer some of that.
Jody, did you want to go over your list? You're the last.
Excuse me?
Your list of priorities.
You don't want to see it.
I do want to see it, but at least give me a copy of it. So I can.
Mine's Wapsie Creek, East Side Water and Streets, Northwest and Booster Station, Greenview Connection, wastewater plant, and then Herbert Hoover and the school. Only because we have no choice.
Okay.
Not bad, Liz.
So Redmond, we'll give you these and the lists.
Okay.
You can weed through them and make a little hierarchical grid.
Okay.
And we want to discuss these at our next meeting on Monday. Or wait till December when we start.
We can have a discussion. I don't know how much work I will have done on it, but we can at least keep it fresh and have a discussion on
Just
it.
something brief, I guess.
Yeah.
And then when we do our goal setting, we're going to do a goal setting session.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that. Did we say first week of December? I think that was the first week of December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you gonna try and figure out dollar numbers
I'll
or?
start the process when I do a little grid, like the Mayor said, and I'll start trying to put together some numbers to go along with those. But like you said, some of these we're pretty far along because we've already figured out. So the tough ones are going to be like Johnson County and some other ones. That Greenview Connection would be a tough one because we hadn't planned on that.
Okay, so as I'm looking through the list again, I see paid on call time for the police that we haven't discussed at all. And I think that we kind of agreed that we were going to help pay for some extra resources for the police department. Something we wanted to discuss.
I see that as a
Is that
in-house.
something in their budget?
That's not capital
an
improvement.
In-house
That's
issue
Should be, but
to figure out.
So in-call is kind
So
of
is
a
he
policy. That's more of a goal-setting item that it'll be there. You can make I know some places use like personnel when you first hire that personnel. It's usually an impact, and a lot. Sometimes you'll see that in a capital improvement plan. Not always. Police cars, equipment, computers, and all those things. Those are assets. Those are identified. They're not big assets, and I know we wanted to talk about the big items, but I did want the departments to start thinking about what those are, because we really haven't been tracking them, and we've been not necessarily having a great equipment replacement program, even when it comes down to some of the office equipment like computers and stuff. So, so they did go through that exercise, but I knew we were going to focus on what we focused on. I just wanted to supply that to you so you can have it, and it'll come back up in the goal setting too. When we finally get done, we'll have a booklet like this, and it will be also with our budget, and people will be able to go in and see these specific projects and be able to understand why we're doing them, why we're not doing them. Some of them will just be unfunded, and that's not uncommon in the CIP. We just can't find the money for it, but you know it's important. It goes unfunded. If some windfall happens during the year, then you can pick up and say, okay, now we can put a little money into that pot. Year 1, year 2, year 3, work up to an actual project. Projects still have the ability to go over budget, but at least you have some plan on how to address it if it does.
Is there any way that, I don't know if each individual council person can look at it, or Redmond, you can look at it, but is there any way we can kind of look down the road and go, all right, our future is doing this? Do we see we have to do something here? So we're not getting hit by the school turning lane, a highway, Hoover Highway intersection, all of a sudden, boom, now we have to take away from some of our capital projects because these were brought to us and they got to be done within the year.
I know. You say no. You say no. You know, when you put it in your plan and they said they didn't want it,
But
and then they come to you, you say no. That's how
when
you
the
do
Hoover
it.
Highway comes and they're going to pay for half of your Cedar Johnson Road, are you going to say, no, we're not going to do that because, you know, it's those scenarios that come up and you go, well, they're going to pay for half of it. That's going to get half of what we're going to do anyway. They're going to pay for it. So
Well,
why wouldn't we go ahead and do the project?
I guess what you're learning is that we've got when you got a bunch of poor planners around you, you just kind of got to roll with the punches. I mean, you know, it was school's poor planning that put us in the position that we were in, and now it's Johnson County's poor planning that put us in the position that we were in. I mean,
But we
you
don't
know,
want to pick the most expensive one.
but again, you're also the one that says if we're going to do it, we might as well do it right, right? I mean, there's no sense of doing it half-ass if we're going to spend the money.
That's
I mean,
true,
you know.
But I wanted to put a circle in, but I said, whatever you guys decide, do it the right way and connect it all.
Except that you can't control, so this project's controlled by the school and this project controlled by the county. We don't get to call the shots.
That's right. It may not even be a roundabout. All they asked was our opinion.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
They get to choose what they do.
But they don't get to choose what we pay. You know, when we tell them we'll pay this much for this, you don't put this in, you're not getting that much.
But like Jerry said, you know, eventually we're going to have a turn lane going up the hill, you know?
Well, that's something that we see. What I'm getting at is if there's projects that we look at town and go, well, this might grow. Let's say the Kroll site. You know, is there an expense there that we can be looking at down in the near future that might automatically pop up because we got a developer that comes in and requires, you know, and that's where we already have that kind of going. If it ever follows through, that he's going to want TIF money for that. So that's going to be, you know, that's going to be something we need to be addressing. We need to have, I don't know if it's in our capital plan, but it's something we need to look at.
Well,
That could be an
again,
expense to us.
that and
Unforeseen.
then you got Gary Robbins' property and you've got A1. You know, where's that going? Where could it go? You know,
A1.
The taxi
A1
cab.
taxi or whatever it is.
Yeah, I've got that car that's been sitting there.
Tree farm.
6 years.
And then,
The tree farm.
The building.
Got trees growing up all around. It's like a tree farm.
and now we got an empty building sitting down there.
Okay.
Hey, while you're on that real quick, you guys said something about if a building was set empty for X amount of time. So does chassis engineering fall into that?
Unless they're using it for storage.
Yeah, I think there might be.
Or something one way that they would lose their ability to, yes. But hopefully they're using it for storage or something.
Well, I'm supposed that that's what that guy, the Mexican restaurant guy is gonna say, is he's using that for storage. I'm sure there's something in there.
There's
Maybe you start leaving, putting shingles in there.
All right, where are we at? We ready to wrap it up?
But that's why you don't go to 80%. You keep your,
Right.
that 10%, that's that stuff that comes up that, you know, if you can't figure out a way to pay for it.
It's just,
Yeah.
we've just been hit, you know, this last year with
Well,
a lot of projects that weren't on our radar and all of a sudden, boom, we got to make a decision. And how are we going to pay for it?
at the end of the day, if we ever start growing, where are we going to grow? What are we going to do? That's because, you know.
We
Stop growing?
No, I mean, like somebody came in, the Dollar General wants to come in. We got to say, can't help you, sorry. you know.
I was ready to tell him that.
Can't help you, sorry. You know, we don't have nothing.
It's funny, I was going through some old Matt Muckler's files trying to find some data on the back of these projects. They've been at West Branch for quite
6
some
years
time.
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be a motel built up here eventually. They may want TIF assistance.
They may. But like I said, that's 90% return. That's
Well, we
a
got
good
the
thing.
capacity. We got it. We have the capacity.
Oh, you gotta have
Well,
it.
except that
They're bringing us tax
That
dollars.
corner, now that they
that's probably the same TIF that for the hotel though, that we're gonna give them back is the same TIF we were gonna use to build their turn lane. That's the part I don't understand, guys,
Still,
is it, how you giving people back money and then you're using their TIF to do stuff? Then you're,
that's why we do 70% of it.
Because they're gonna sell
We only give them 70%.
directly out of
You
there.
told me they're gonna do.
so you're gonna,
What we're asking. We only give them 70% of it.
But then we get the next 10 years. We give it for less than 20 and we get 10.
well, but not really, because if the hotel gets built up there and you rebate back 70% of their taxes to them, TIF them back to them, then we're gonna take the tax increment that we got on it, that you're never gonna get anyway, because you're taking that and you're using that to build a turn lane. So then you never got the 70% that they paid in, because that went to the TIF district anyway.
Yeah, we got the 30% to build the turn lane.
And then you're gonna give
And
them
plow the
70% back. No, I mean,
But
Plow
only
the
for
road.
10 years. The next 10 years, we get all of it.
And then it's a 20 years on commercial.
Yeah.
We can ask for 20 years. We only agree to them for
you're
10
not
years.
getting where I'm going with
I see where you're going. I
this.
see where you're going.
You're seeing some sort of double dipping
I gotta
or,
look at the tip, when you look, talking about over there, that might be in the unlimited tip, so.
But at least with a hotel, we get hotel motel tax. So they can't take that away. Unless
There's
the
no
state does.
tax increment when you're giving them back their taxes.
There is after you stop giving them back the tax.
Well, yeah, but how much money do you lose until then?
You don't lose it, you never had it.
Yeah, you're gonna have it.
Yes, you guys aren't following me, all right?
The demand
So-
of services is going to require.
So
go ahead.
if they give you your money, here's the pile of money they give you. And you give them this pile of money back. But then you have this tax increment deal, so you're getting that money in that you never got because you gave the money back to them. And then you're borrowing money off of a tax increment that never happened because you gave the money back to them.
No, you're talking
You're not
about the
giving
same
them all.
thing twice. You're,
You're only giving them 7.
No,
they
I'm
pay
not.
their tax and we give it back, 70% of it. 30% is ours to use because we need it to plow the road and buy the salt. And
You're saying that
I don't see that
30%
we're losing.
He's saying that 30% now we're paying for
No.
a turn lane.
Right, because you TIF the turn lane too, that's on the same damn district.
The TIF money for the turn lane comes from Procter and Gamble or another source for the turn lane. It doesn't have to come from that particular building.
Well, it's coming from your
We can use
increment.
money, TIF money from Procter and Gamble to pay for the sewer line across the residential at the Meadows. Correct? It's just,
money's.
TIF money is there, available, 1.48 million, I don't know what it is. We can use it at
But
any
that's
other
where
TIF
But
district we
that's where your
want.
TIF money's coming from, is from the new stuff. So what I'm saying is, of all the new stuff you're giving the money back, then there's not really a,
We're not giving
You're not
all
getting
the
an
money
increment.
back. Hopefully, we'll never give all the money back for everything that's new. We're only gonna give 70% of it back. We're confusing each other on.
but because I think you're confused about the 70% deal. I understand that we're only giving 70% of it back, but it was because we needed that 30% for other stuff besides
For our general
our
fund.
other TIF
For our general
obligations.
fund. But then we got other TIF obligations that you're saying we're giving that money, we're using the money twice, and we're only asking for it once. We're using it to give it back to them, and we're using it to do the turn lane.
We're using tax increment that we're not even ever getting. Because we've already given it back to them.
But we've got more. We've got the whole south side of the interstate is TIFable. All those properties.
So part of the
We're tapping
assumption,
into some of that.
part of
to
the
pay for that
assumption
turn
is
lane.
that the growth that we've been getting is coming from the activities that we've been doing. Sometimes it's directly related and easier to see than others. And I think maybe the argument is we should be more diligent to make sure that it has a direct relation to actually increasing our growth so that we continue to have it. If we tend to use it for things that doesn't attribute to our growth, at some point in time, our growth will
Correct.
flatten out.
That's why I think it's a bad idea to use it for, say, downstream widening. That has nothing to do with growth or economic development. Very little. Not flooding.
I don't know. I think it's hard to fill buildings that are underwater.
Yeah. All right, we can have this argument for a while.
Yeah, it's an age-old argument, so don't think you're gonna get an answer
Are
tonight.
we done?
Okay. I can get everyone's list.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
One more downtown business.
All right, motion to adjourn, anyone? Is there anything else first? Motion to adjourn, someone?
Move.
Dean and Nick will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.